Welcome to New Hampshire Politics with John Burt. I'm John Burt, and I want to thank you for joining me today. And today, hopefully you'll remember Senator Bob Smith here. He is a candidate for the U.S. Senate here in New Hampshire. And Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's exciting having you on here, especially who you used to work under.
Yeah, Mr. Reagan.
Oh, that must have been exciting times.
It was really exciting. I remember in 1984 when I was elected, I don't know if your listeners, some of them might not be old enough to remember it, but it was bitter cold in Washington when Reagan was inaugurated for his second term.
Oh,
they
I
had
didn't
to
know
cancel
that.
the parade.
Wow.
And I got a chance when they brought it all inside the Capitol underneath the dome, and I was standing 10 feet from Reagan when he took the oath.
Wow.
Gave you goosebumps, new congressman, freshman coming in and standing there next to turned out to be one of the greatest presidents ever.
Oh, absolutely. I think they should go over to Mount Rushmore and carve them out.
I'd be willing to pay the stone carver to do that.
Yeah. And now he won 49 states that time.
1 year he did, yeah. I think he lost Mondale's state of Minnesota. I believe.
Yeah. So it must have been real exciting. And now you're coming out and you're going to run again for U.S. Senate.
Yeah, I am, John. It was not an easy decision, but I really feel deeply about how our country is going, and it's swinging so far to the left now with what I call the central planners planning everything in your life, and I just feel I can contribute. I think that we have to stop it now. We're losing our freedoms, and
absolutely
we can go into detail as we progress here, but we are losing our freedoms, and it really boils down to the people who like freedom versus those who are willing to let the government plan everything in their lives, from health care to spying on you and telling you who the IRS has harassing you for who you are. I mean, come on. I mean, and then it just goes on and on and on. We got to stop it.
Yes, absolutely we do. And just to cover base too, is you do have a website for the viewers that are first tuning in here, and it's bobsmithforusenate.com.
Yeah.
And then you're also giving your phone number out for the people that don't have internet, which there's quite a few people.
Yeah.
And that's New Hampshire, 603-606-1581.
Yeah.
And somebody will be there to answer that phone and talk to them. And
would be, if they don't, they'll get right back. If there isn't, there'll be somebody right back to you quickly.
Yeah, good. And well, let's start off with, let's talk about your background. Your parents, your services that you've done for the United States and New Hampshire.
Well, I like to say that I came from good stock, John, the old expression that's used a lot. And if you come from good stock, you really got a good head start.
Absolutely, yeah.
But my character and who I am and my morals, all the thing about me, my political philosophy, it really came from my grandparents and my parents. My dad was killed when I was only 3 years old. He was killed in Navy aircraft after surviving all the combat missions in the war.
Wow.
Came home in 1945, and they were on a training mission. He was the co-pilot, and it crashed into the Chesapeake Bay. And of course, like so many other widows, my mom had to, face all that. She had 2 kids, my brother and me, and it was tough. But other families went through it. But the hardest part for my mom was he survived the war, my dad, and then was killed. He was only 10 days back.
Wow.
And he was assigned to this new duty station. It was one of those things, a malfunction of the aircraft, and crashed into the bay. So, but his family, my father's family, there were 5 children, and 4 of them had epilepsy and died before the age of 20. And I remember one of them, my uncle, and that in those days it was hard. They didn't really have the kind of treatment they have today, and those terrible seizures that they had in those days, and witnessing that as a young kid.
Yeah, that had been very hard.
Yeah, and so that we faced that, and then my grandmother died at a very young age, 47, and then my grandparents basically raised me on the farm, and that's where my character developed. You learn responsibility, raising animals and taking care of animals and doing the things, the chores and responsibilities on the farm. So I came from good stock.
Yeah. Well, no, I grew up on a farm, and you really learn what life is.
I remember one day I was going to run away. I got in an argument with my mother, and I'm starting down the driveway with my dog Skippy,
Yeah.
and carrying a little bag of clothes. And my grandfather stopped me. He said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I'm running away. I can't stand it anymore." My mom and I argued. And he said, "Well, where are you going?" I said, "I have no idea." And he said, "Well, let me ask you something." He said, "Those chickens out there, they're your responsibility. You feed them. And the cows over there, they're your responsibility. And you have some other chores here. What's going to happen to those cows and chickens if you run away?" And I said, "Well, you're going to take care of them while I'm gone." "Mm-mm. No, I'm not."
Wow.
He said, "They won't make it. They'll die
Yeah.
because they're not my responsibility. They're yours." I came back in a couple of hours.
Yeah. How old were you then?
I'd say probably 12.
Oh,
12
really?
about
Yeah,
10, 11 or 12.
Yeah, that'd be the age.
In there, yeah. That's when you want to run away,
Yeah, start getting independent.
Yeah, getting independent, yeah.
Well, now that you said that you were a U.S. Senator under Reagan, what was it like to serve under him? I mean, it must have been just incredible. He was my first president I ever voted for.
It was so remarkable, John. I met Reagan the first time in 1976 up in Wolfboro when he campaigned here for the first time when he lost to Ford in the primary.
Yeah.
And, I met him then, and I thought there was just something about him that I could just, I don't know, you just feel it. Greatness. It just entered my mind. And when he lost in 76, I was so disappointed. But going down, I didn't get elected in 1980, so I had to wait till 84 before I was elected. So I went in with Reagan in his second term, and as we talked about earlier with the swearing in, but to be there when President Reagan was really just turning America around and just inspiring the nation.
Yes.
It's just indescribable. He
Yeah.
was just such an inspirational person. And even Sam Donaldson, I had a chance to talk to Sam a couple of years ago during the Newt Gingrich primary, in the presidential primaries here in New Hampshire. And he told me he changed his whole position on Reagan. He said, we used to pick on him and say he was, shallow and had to have notes to talk. I was in several meetings with Reagan, never saw him use a note. I mean,
Yeah.
the guy was just amazing. And even Donaldson said he was a great president. He was a great man, and which was remarkable coming from Sam Donaldson.
Yes, yeah.
But he was just. I think Reagan's real character trait was that number one, he knew what was good. He didn't. You have these presidents. I call them the in-basket presidents. If they don't have something in their in-basket, they don't know what to do. They don't know what they believe.
Yes.
This guy came to work in the morning. You know what he believed, and he knew what he believed, and he could inspire you. Go out and do it. You don't need orders from headquarters. You just do what's right.
Absolutely.
And he was amazing, just the greatest. I'm so lucky. I feel so fortunate to have gotten to know him, to even have a picture with him. It was just remarkable.
Wow, that had to been. I mean, one of the greatest presidents ever.
I think so. I think he's right there with Lincoln and one or two others. Yeah. I absolutely feel that way, and I think history's going to even bear that out even more. And if you think back to Reykjavik, I mean, when he went to Iceland and met with Gorbachev, and basically he convinced Gorbachev that we had the ability
Yes.
to shoot down his missiles.
Yeah.
We didn't.
No.
We were working on the technology. It's called Strategic Defense Initiative, but we didn't have it perfected. But Gorbachev thought we did, and he walked away from that summit with all of his advisors telling him not to, even his wife telling him not to. But he said, "Nope, not signing anything, not until we get the Russians to the table with the real thing here, so that we can end nuclear weapons and not have to worry about them." But Gorbachev took the bait,
Yep.
and the rest is history. The wall came down, and I don't know if you haven't, or any of your listeners, if you ever get a chance to visit the Reagan Library in California.
I haven't.
It is one of the most inspirational things you've ever been to. Of course, Reagan was alive the last time I was there. He's now buried there. But there's one room where you go in, and you kind of, it's like there's a replica of the Berlin Wall, and you get up and then you hear, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall."
Really?
I mean, it gives you goosebumps, But seriously, we need that kind of inspiration now. Our country is drifting to the left and we're getting into this controlled economy, controlled everything. Control
Yes.
your life, control the economy, control your doctors, your health insurance, your health care. It's too much, and we need to get away from it, and soon. And you know, God bless Reagan. I mean, he would be here today. He'd inspire you to turn it around. We can meet any challenge, anytime. That's what we do. We're Americans. We meet challenges. We don't view things as problems.
Yes.
You know, we meet challenges, and we take them on and we conquer them, and that's what he would do, and that's what he would say. Yeah. So in his tradition, I'm back. I just feel strongly that this is what we need, is some kind of inspirational leadership. And if we can get the young people today, if we can inspire young people to get involved in politics, it's their country. Do they really want a country where they have more freedom or less freedom? I mean, that's the issue.
Absolutely. That is the issue. And so really you have an edge over, you know, your competition because you have the experience.
Sure. I mean, in a primary, one of the things I always like to say is, you know, I don't take anything for granted, believe me, in a primary. It's the voters have to sort it out. They have to sort it out in any election, but in a primary where, maybe with the exception of Scott Brown, where all of us kind of agree on things, we can talk about Brown later, we pretty much agree with things as Republicans, then the voters have to sort it out who brings to the table the best shot at winning in the general election, who sticks to the Republican principles and platform the most, and perhaps who can inspire and win the race. I mean, but when you win, you want to win with a candidate who's going to govern as a conservative and as our party would like us to govern, as opposed to someone who's going to be more like the Democrats, i.e. Scott Brown.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that is because, I mean, you know, we have Shaheen now.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I said is that here's a riddle for you. There are 3 people running for the U.S. Senate seat in New Hampshire, all of whom have the term U.S. Senator in front of their name. Bob Smith, Gene Shaheen, and Scott Brown.
Yes, yeah.
How many of them are conservative?
I know one.
There's a riddle, right?
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah,
the other 2 are not. I mean, I could, you know, it's interesting on the compare and contrast. Look at, you know, here's the thing. Senator Shaheen is pro-choice,
yes.
pro-abortion. Scott Brown is pro-abortion. Gene Shaheen is pretty much anti-gun. Scott Brown, anti-gun. Gene Shaheen voted for the bill Dodd-Frank, which regulated a lot of community banks right out of business, regulates the financial services industry. He voted for that. Shaheen voted for that. So Brown, Shaheen.
Yeah.
He voted more than 50% of the time as a U.S. Senator. 50%, more than 50, almost 55% of the time in his 2 years in the Senate when he was in Massachusetts, he voted with the Democrats. So what is the point? So I'm going to have a clear contrast, and with Senator Shaheen, I think that's the way we win.
Absolutely. Well, I am going to jump to one question now that you brought it up, is the national debt is, you know, 17 trillion. And I mean, you know,
it's mind-boggling.
It is. And you know with Shaheen, she voted for this.
She did. She's helped and you know, unfortunately, her voting record is about 99% with Obama. And
wow.
Even, you know, even when I was when President Bush was there, even President Reagan, although he was right most of the time, I don't know if I voted with him 99% of the time. I mean, once in a while, even the president is wrong. You got to have some independence here. You got to think for yourself, and that bothers me a little bit. But the national debt, when you think about it, I think it's something like $55,000 now for every man, woman, and child in America.
Wow.
Some people say we might as well pay our share now because it's not going to get any better. But 17 trillion, it's grown 5 or 6 trillion under Obama. It's going to be well over 20 trillion by the time he leaves office. How are we going to address this? I mean, we have to cut spending, but in addition to that, we have to grow the economy. And this is my main contrast with Scott Brown and Gene Shaheen. We call him Sha Brown. Here's the contrast. This regulation, Dodd-Frank, is a good example of increased regulation on business, which costs jobs. I mean, more business, more regulations, more taxes, and it costs jobs, and businesses can't afford to expand and grow and create more jobs. So if you expand the economy through the private sector,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we grow more, businesses grow, they expand, they hire, and more jobs are created. And when more jobs are created, more people are working, more money goes into the Treasury as taxes. And that between what grows in the economy and what you cut spending, you balance the budget, and then you move it, you ratchet it down. You're not going to do it overnight, but you got to ratchet it down. It would be nice to see that debt clock going like this instead of going like this.
And it can do that over time.
It can, and we just have to have the guts to step up and do it. We got to tell the people the truth. I think people are willing to make whatever sacrifice is necessary, but I think the sacrifice will be minimal if we grow the economy. John, that there's $1 trillion, there are $1 trillion offshore right now with private industry has gone offshore to get away from the regulations
Yes.
and the tax structure in this country.
Yep.
$1 trillion, at least. It may be more. Some say more. Bring that back. Give some incentive. Bring that $1 trillion back. Say to these companies, look, bring your technology back here. Bring your companies back here. Put that $1 trillion on this condition. We'll give you a break on it. We won't hit you with the taxes if you put that money into job growth and expansions in your country. Come on back.
Yeah,
Come
absolutely.
on back to America. This is America. And this is what we need to do. So what does Obama do? He says, well, let's punish them.
Yeah.
No, that's the wrong approach. And that's what, and there's where President Obama, Gene Shaheen, and Scott Brown are, and I'm over here, along with Reagan.
Yes.
And the
Well,
Republicans.
but Bob, when I read some of the newspaper articles out of the Wall Street Journals or Forbes, some of these companies, they want to come back.
They do.
That's
But they're being threatened. They're being threatened.
Yeah.
I mean, threatened with lawsuits. Threatened
You know,
with confiscation. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And these people want to produce jobs in America. Man, let them produce. I mean, Obama always talks about spreading the wealth around.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, somebody's got to create the wealth. I don't favor spreading it around. No, I know you don't.
No,
but,
I don't.
But somebody's got to create it.
Absolutely.
And it isn't the government that creates wealth. You know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to take a small break, and we'll be right back and we've got a few more questions for you.
All right.
And right now we're talking with Senator Bob Smith, and he's a candidate for the U.S. Senate in the 2014 election. We'll be right back. Welcome back to New Hampshire Politics with John Burt. And again, we're talking with Senator Bob Smith, and he's a candidate for the 2014 U.S. Senate race here in New Hampshire. Bob, I do want to start off because I did see your announcement on central planners versus freedom. I was wondering if you could talk about that, because that is an idea from you.
Well, I think it really gets to the heart of really where we are in this country right now. I think it's the main difference, clearly, between Senator Shaheen and myself, and Senator Brown and myself, frankly. The idea is that on one side, you have those who believe in freedom, believe in liberty, believe in the opportunity for people to compete in essentially a fair but unregulated economy. I mean, you have to have some, you can't have, poison food or something, but I mean, with reasonable regulations. But this idea that, and then on the other side, you have everything planned for you. I mean, you have Obamacare, let's use that as an example. Somebody else picks your doctor, somebody else picks your health insurance, somebody else, picks this or that, and you can go down the line. And then in addition to the central planning, you got big government, more spending, Common Core, education programs. You go down the line. Somebody in Washington, some bureaucracy or some bureaucrat is planning your life.
Yes, yep.
And everybody says, well, it's Washington. Well, it's Washington technically because Washington is where all these people go that do this, but it's the people there that are doing this to us. And if you ever notice, if you've ever been to Washington, the cities that ring around there, Potomac, McLean, and all of that, and that D.C. area, these are all, and K Street in Washington, it's all these big time money guys that are, growing and getting big and fat on the U.S. government and on the taxpayers.
Yeah.
And that's what's wrong. And those are the central planners. Those are the people that are planning our lives. And so the theme of my campaign is it's them versus us. It really, really is. But if you're going to say that you're going to eliminate the central planners and provide more freedom, more opportunity, more growth, more individualism, more freedom, then we got to have some alternatives. We can't just say no more Obamacare. Well, clearly, we have more opportunities. You can have medical savings accounts where you can put money in an account for yourself, and which hopefully will pay for insurance and certainly play the gap between insurance and what you owe. If we can inspire more of those, we can have more portability for insurance. You can have tort reform. You can have let insurance follow the individual rather than just have your company pay for it. Let you pay for it. You pay for it in the sense that you can carry it with you as an individual, so that pre-existing conditions, we should support that. These are reforms that we as Republicans and conservatives believe in, but to throw out the entire healthcare system, Obamacare, to throw out our current healthcare system, to replace it with Obamacare, it's absolutely an outrage, and it was jammed down our throats.
Yes.
With every single Democrat senator voting for it. Now,
and Shaheen was right there.
Shaheen was right there. I think, look, it's not personal.
No.
As we talked about earlier, but it is, you are responsible for the positions you take. And it's a basic choice here, not only in New Hampshire, but all over the country. Is that what you want? Look at your grandchildren and look at their pictures, or look at them in the eye in person. I don't get to see them as much as I'd like to, my own. But you look at them and you say, do I really want these kids to have the opportunity to choose their doctor, to choose their profession, to do it without, or to run a business or grow a business or create a business without having the federal government down on their necks and keeping them to do it? Do I want that, where those kids can do this stuff in freedom, or do I want them to have their whole life planned for them by somebody who thinks they know better in Washington, D.C.? And that's why we have this tremendous debt. And sooner or later, taxpayers are going to get to the point where they just can't do it anymore, and the country's going to break down. So I want more freedom, and that's the issue. More freedom versus less freedom. That's the issue between a Smith-Shaheen race or a Smith-Brown race.
Yes. Yeah, no, I'm all for more freedoms. And, I do want to touch base a little bit on the Obamacare. So would you repeal the whole thing, or would you keep some of it and open the markets more? Because I wonder, why can't I buy insurance out in Idaho or
You should.
anywhere I want to buy it?
Well, first of all, the first part of your question, absolutely, we should throw the whole thing out because it's getting spread around now in different ways throughout the law, and it's getting very, very complex and very complicated. And the more it continues without basically killing the plan, although it's much more complicated than the answer I'm going to give. The answer I'm giving is simplistic in the sense that it really is, though, the goal is what bothers me. That's why we need to cut it off. The goal is one national healthcare system. Get the private sector out, have the government run the healthcare, the government make the decisions. Who's your doctor? What about this decision? Do I need it? Can I have a hip replacement at the age of 90? Well, that's between the patient and the doctor. If a woman has a good quality of life, or a man who needs a hip replacement at that age, maybe that's definitely a decision that the doctor and the patient should make, not somebody in Washington. There's no clear cut rule. And this is the danger. This is where we're headed, and it's the danger zone. So that's why we need to throw it out, get rid of it, and then move in with these immediately. We as conservatives have got to come in, make sure that insurance is portable. You don't want to be able to be moved from one job to another, and you got a pre-existing condition, you can't protect it.
Absolutely.
You can't protect yourself, your health. It's most important thing. So absolutely. So pre-existing conditions, like you say, buy it in Idaho, buy it in Texas, wherever the cheapest.
Yeah.
If I can buy, and it doesn't have to follow the employer, it can follow you.
Yep.
And you can go on and on down the line. We've got numbers of reforms, but let the markets determine this. Let the market, it'll bring the costs down. And right now, Obamacare, as you know, in New Hampshire, we have, 10 hospitals that now aren't even going to take patients?
Yeah.
You got one provider, one health insurance provider, and my goodness, thousands, I think the last number I saw was 22,000 people who had lost their health insurance, and some people who not only, if you get new health insurance, you're going to have to pay more and get a higher deductible on top of that.
Yes.
And that's a mandate.
Yeah, that's
Think
what
of
I'm
that.
hearing. Yes.
That's a mandate.
Yeah.
I mean, if you mandate that you have to buy this particular health insurance, how about mandating what kind of potato chips you buy, or mandating what kind of a car you buy? And people laugh and they say, "Well, is it? How about the mayor of New York, Bloomberg, when he's mandated you can't drink a large Coke for crying out loud?"
Yeah.
I mean, this is America.
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, is this the America we want? And I think people are waking up to it, especially young people, John. They're figuring it out.
Oh, they are.
You selfish old folks, you're spending all of our money,
Yeah.
and you're leaving us a big debt. And when you die, you don't want to leave your debts to your kids.
No.
You want to leave your home, but not your mortgage. Yeah. You want to leave your car, but not the car payment.
Yeah.
Come on. You want to leave your whatever. Your clothes, but not clothes that are no good.
Now, how do you feel on, in a little bit more on the health care, only because it is a big topic, and I think it's going to be the topic.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
Sure is.
I want to just touch base with Senator Shaheen. She has a year off of owning this because Obama, through an executive order, not through the law says this part of Obamacare is going to take place this year.
Right.
And just by a sign of a pen, which I think is
I
unconstitutional,
do too.
he says, no, we're going to push it a year so Shaheen and the others, they can just kind of say, well, oh, no, we didn't do this.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel on that? That he's willing to break the Constitution to allow her to go around this state and say, oh, I didn't hurt anybody.
It goes right back to the central planners thing. They're so powerful.
Yeah.
They feel that they don't have to answer to anybody.
Yeah.
And every president, in my view, has probably abused the executive order to some extent, but nothing like this guy.
Yes.
But even going back to your point, even worse, you will keep your doctor, period. You will keep your health insurance, period. You will not pay less. You will pay not pay more. You will pay less, period. I mean, and Senator Shaheen said the same thing.
Yes.
The same thing. Now, did she know the truth? She either knew the truth and didn't tell us the truth, or she didn't know because she didn't read the bill. And either one of those cases are not good.
Yes.
So, and then to come up with an executive order, because I believe Senator Shaheen was one of the 14 or 15 Democrats who were up for re-election who went up to the White House and said, oh my gosh, bail us out, we're in big trouble.
Yeah.
So he signs the executive order, rolls it back a year.
Yeah.
And so what's going to happen around August, September, October? Another executive order, roll it back another year before the mandate is implemented on the business. Because that's next.
Yes.
And then it's big time bad. Then people are going to lose their jobs. Then more people are going to lose their jobs.
Well, I heard UPS is going to drop a couple 100,000 insurance.
Yeah, they can't pay it. They're either going to have to drop people from the roles of providing, or another option could be to cut back on their time,
Yes.
work time, so that they can't be eligible for it.
Yeah.
Or they could even go to, who knows? I mean, they could say, well, we're going to cut your beneficiaries off, or cut your wife off, or your children off the, or your husband, whatever the case may be, off the life insurance, off the health insurance policy. So we're only going to cover you and not your spouse or your children. So all kinds of adjustments are going to have to be made because it's going to of the tremendous cost
Yes.
that's going to be pushed.
Yeah.
Now, we're not talking about, Apple here. We're talking about small companies who have 50, 60 employees, and I think 50, if I'm not mistaken, is the cutoff. I might be wrong on that, but I believe it's 50. So if you're sitting there with 52 employees, and you know what's coming, what are you going to do? You're going to fire 2 or 3 to get
Yep.
below the mark.
Yep.
Whatever the cutoff is, that's what you're going to do.
But that number could change in the
That
future.
could change. That could change. Never know with a man with a pen.
Well, that's it.
He doesn't seem to care about the Constitution. But
No, that's right. And let me tell the viewers one more time how to get a hold of you, and that's Bob Smith for U.S. Senate.com, and the phone number, if you want to just pick up the phone the old-fashioned way and give them a call, is 606-1581. And now I am going to talk about something that's very dear to my heart. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, from the date we're taping here, I will be fighting on the New Hampshire House over this. And it's called the Second Amendment.
yes, sir.
Where do you feel on that? Because the Democrats up to the U.S. House, or the New Hampshire House, is trying to take our guns. And again, there's many reps, and I'm going to be one of them, to be taking the House floor fighting this.
Well, I know your record on it, John, and I want to take this time to thank you for it,
Well,
because this is where the action is.
It is.
I mean, they always talk about the federal races, but you guys are carrying the water in the state house there, and I know there is a good number of you who are doing it and fighting hard for the Second Amendment. And I'm with you 100%.
Well, thank you.
I'm proud to say that I had an A+ rating with the NRA, an A+ rating with the Gun Owners of America, and I'm actually be giving a speech. I'm not this week to the Gun Owners of New Hampshire, talking to them. They're always coming at us. When I was in the Senate, Frank Lautenberg was leading the charge to take our guns. Bill Clinton. They were
Yep.
always conniving ways to do it, and every time some horrible tragedy occurred, they always used that to exploit it and to put pressure on people to try to succumb to the issue, as if somehow that it's the weapon that committed the crime as opposed to the person.
Yes.
Who doesn't claim any responsibility. Second Amendment is as clear as any other amendment as far as I'm concerned. We have those rights. We have a right as an individual to own a gun, to protect ourselves, and that is in the Constitution. And frankly, it's part of our individual liberties. And the one in the amendment, it's at 2A in the New Hampshire Constitution.
Yes.
Even clarifies it even more as being an individual liberty.
Absolutely. And the New Hampshire one, yep.
Yeah. So 100% pro-gun, and I might say, I'm sorry to say, Senator Sheen is not.
Yes.
And I'm sorry to say Senator Brown is not.
Yeah.
So the gun owners can make their choices there.
Yeah. Well, I think they're screaming out there. I'm here.
I'm hearing it.
Now, your speech that you're going to be speaking at, will that be on your website? Hopefully, if you
Probably
can
when
grab
we
it?
get it done. Yeah. I'm not. I know we're taping, so but people
Yeah.
understand that. But it is
Yeah.
tonight as we tape, so I'm not sure what time the show goes on.
Yeah.
On the air, but it'll probably be on the website by the time people see this.
Yep, perfect. All right. So, and if not, they can just check back. And,
Right.
Yeah, because I know that's a hot topic
That's
right
a hot
now.
topic. And it's so important. It was such a basic right. The founders, the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights.
Yes.
They felt strongly about it. It's an individual liberty, and the right to bear arms. It's as clear as can be. And but yet we are under assault by these folks. They're after us every day.
Oh, Bloomberg's up here all the time
All
trying
the
to take
time.
them.
Spending
Here in
money.
New Hampshire, and I'm
Yeah.
going, Bloomberg, go back to New York. Leave us alone.
Yeah. Well, as we all know, guns actually save lives.
Oh, absolutely.
If people, honest, law-abiding citizens that had guns, where some of these horrible crimes had been committed, some of them may have been prevented.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know, just as a little side note, every time somebody will bring up about, well, would it hurt if we just regulated this? And I say, go out and talk to the people in Chicago, and you tell me how their gun control.
When I was a kid, this will probably horrify some of the left. When I was a kid in school, in high school, once in a while kids would bring a shotgun to school.
Yeah.
Not loaded, but a shotgun. Because they wanted to go rabbit hunting or something, or pheasant hunting at the end of the day. They put them in a closet. Closet was locked, and they picked them up at the end of school and went hunting.
Yep.
I mean, that's
Well, I graduated in 1978, and we were bringing guns to school
Yeah.
then. And I tell my Democrat friends, and they said no. And I said yes. I said the principal did ask us, put the gun at the bottom
Sure.
locker and the bullets on the top. It worked.
Every time I think of that terrible disaster in Connecticut,
Oh yeah, that's
Newtown,
just,
all
yeah,
I can think
very
of
sad.
is if that principal or anybody there, janitor or anybody, had an opportunity to take that guy out.
Absolutely.
Think of the lives that would have saved. And if they'd been armed, you hear the story of this poor woman principal running down the hallway, basically putting her body in front of the children.
Yeah, and God bless her for doing it.
God bless her. What a hero. And they are. And all those children and all those people and those teachers cradling those children. Breaks your heart. But if we just had somebody had the ability to take him out, we could have saved so many lives.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so it's horrible. These tragedies are horrible. And I've always said those who speak out, who have been through that, whether it's a parent or any other relative, they have every right to say whatever they want. They earned that right with what happened.
Yes.
But it's a shame that these things do get exploited for gun control, which is not the cause of the crime.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I did want to touch base on our military and foreign policies under Obama. How do you feel on that? And I'm wondering also is the cuts that, Obama is recommending, to our military, that's not going over well.
I think what saddens me is they ask the military to do more. The
Yes.
administration ask the military to do more with less. I mean, we got threats in Korea, we got a mess in the Ukraine, we're in Afghanistan. Iraq's going to probably go right back the way it was before we left. We're still got some forces residual left there. The Middle East is a powder keg. Israel's being threatened. We're not respected in the world. Yeltsin, dating myself.
Yeah.
Putin was you can just watch the body language. He has absolutely no respect for President Obama at all. Zero. I mean, it's in the body language. And he's just going to push as hard or as far as he needs to because he knows nothing is going to happen.
Yep.
He's just going to, they were the so-called free elections in where was it? In the Crimea.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, we have to. Reagan's said it best: peace through strength.
Yep.
You show them you got the strength. You use it for peace, but you will win the peace by being strong, and so that no one can threaten you. And I think, and the final point I would make a comment to the veterans. There's nothing more horrible than seeing these men and women who have given it all over there to come back horribly wounded, and you see these broadcasts, these advertising. God bless these people who are asking for money to help these folks get back into the swing of things.
Yeah.
And they're not looking for handouts, but they earned the right to get from their government the help that they need. They shouldn't have to be out begging for money. We put them there as a government and as taxpayers, and we should take care of them. What's a better, higher priority than taking care of our veterans? Cut someplace else. Don't cut those guys.
Yes, absolutely.
And gals.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, we need to, our obligation is this, and we should stick to it.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
to renege and to cut their pay.
Well, as a veteran myself and one who lost his dad in a war, I understand. Anybody that went through that understands the price they pay. And freedom isn't free. It's a trite expression, but it isn't.
No.
And on that point though, you think about the guys. I remember Reagan when these are the boys that scaled the peaks at talking about Normandy.
Yes.
And I think, did those guys scale those cliffs and drive those Nazis out of France and drive them all the way back to Berlin and crush the Nazi Empire? Did they do that so that we could have somebody tell us what health insurance we want, what doctor we want?
Exactly.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. They also didn't do it to have the IRS spy on us because of our political beliefs, or harass us because of our political beliefs, or the NSA spy on us because of a phone call, or because of our backgrounds, or use drones. They didn't do that. That's not the America that we all grew up in, and it's not the America that we want to be of the future. It's certainly not the America that I want my children to grow up in, or my grandchildren. I want America, kids to grow up in freedom, and to make those sacrifices that those men and women made over the years. We need to be worthy of those sacrifices. That's our solemn obligation. Solemn.
Yeah. Well, but you're absolutely right, Bob. Is I just lost a friend. He was 90 years old about a year ago, Christmas time, and he fought first day on Iwo Jima.
Wow, that was a tough battle. Man.
Oh, that was. And I asked him. I said, "Hal, what did you do?" He says, "Well, I learned how to keep my head down." He said it was just brutal.
Those guys, you know, Tom Brokaw called it the greatest generation.
Oh,
it
unbelievable.
was. I mean, it really was. When you stop to think about it, I mean, I had like the gentleman, your friend, I had the opportunity to talk to a guy. I went to, I believe it was the 45th anniversary of Normandy, where those guys did scale the cliffs there, and Pundalak. That's what I was trying to think of, right? Pundalak, is that right? And I talked to a guy who was on the beach, and he was hit in the chest and knocked down. And I said, how come you didn't die? He said, I had a package of Gillette razor blades in my breast pocket, and the bullet hit it, and it actually hit it so hard that it actually drove it into my chest and actually stopped my heart momentarily, knocked me down, knocked my breath out. And he said, I was unconscious, I don't know how long, minutes, and I woke up, and he said, people behind me were dead or dying, and people in front of me were dying or dead, and on my left and on my right. And I said, I just laid there and played dead for an hour or two till darkness came, got to the base of the cliff. We worked our way up with the other guys, and we took out the machine gun nests, and the rest is history. But it's amazing what these guys did.
Yeah.
And you know, it was Colin Powell who said, we fight all over the world for people's liberty, all over the world.
Yes.
The only thing we ever ask in return is a place to bury our dead.
Yes.
And how true is that?
Yeah.
What a great country. And we don't want people growing up in a country where bureaucrats in Washington, many of whom never served anywhere, except
absolutely.
in D.C., collecting paychecks, telling us what to do with our freedoms. And as I say, I think the young people are figuring it out.
Yeah.
And when they figure it out, we're going to change things in this country.
Yep, we will. Yeah, and we need to bring back, that people can, do for themselves. We do not need government to take care of us.
It's just amazing. It seems that people are acquiescing to it. I'm
almost succumbing to it.
Succumbing to it.
Yeah.
But I'm an optimist. I'm
I
like
am
Reagan.
too.
I'm an optimist. I'm not giving up yet.
Yeah.
That's why I'm back in this thing at my age. I don't want to give up, and I will not give up.
Well, and that's what I was wondering. Is one of the other questions I had for you is, why are you coming back after all these years? The big reason why.
Well, I think it's just because I believe that we can turn this country around, and I think my role as in running and being a United States Senator now is to try to inspire the young people to come back into the process and elect people, throw out these people who are doing this to us, throw out the central planners,
Yes.
and bring in the people who love freedom, and change our government. And once we do that, it's like we need a fresh breeze, a new breeze blowing in, or a clean sweep, sweep out the old, bring in the new. And I think that you might say, well, how does a guy in his 70s do that? Well, Reagan did it, and Churchill did it, and there were people who contributed much. Albert Einstein contributed much at his age. It's not the age. It's what you inspire. It's what, Ron Paul is a good example. He's got millions of followers who are young people.
Yeah.
And I would appeal to them to come out and support me and support the cause here. It's not about one person. It's the cause of freedom and liberty and justice.
Well, one thing you said earlier that really has stuck with me, Bob, is you said the young are realizing what's happening. They want a leader to say, look, this is the path we should go down, like the freedoms and et cetera. Not that we'll take care of you and we're going to pick your doctor and basically we're going to pick your automobile insurance, which will come, or how many chips you can eat a day. And that's coming.
They may be coming.
Well, ice cream police, they'll be here.
When I was in the Senate, we had a debate on trigger locks. And the Liberals had this bill up to have inspections. If people come to your house and inspect your guns to see if it had a trigger lock.
Even back then?
Yeah. And
Oh
this
my
was
God.
this was in the 80s. Could you, or 90s? Could you imagine? Now you got. Yes, sir. Can I help you? Well, I'm the federal government trigger lock inspector. Can you get your sidearm out and your weapons? I want to see if you got a lock on it. Please. Yeah. But I mean, these guys were serious about this stuff. But it's scary. I mean, we make a joke out of it, but it's scary. There are people who want to do this to us. And I think, as I said, the kids are figuring it out. And when they do, it's Katie bar the doors, my grandfather used to say. Just take them out, move them on out, move them on out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get a clean sweep with a new broom and clean them out.
Well, a lot of polls, national polls that I'm reading, show that Senator Shaheen and her like are in big trouble, that we probably will take over the House and the Senate.
I think there's a great possibility, and I think the chances are excellent because of it. I don't think it's personal, as I said earlier, but it is, you are responsible for what you believe in, and I think as long as the young people understand that what's at stake here, a lot of times they turn off.
Yes.
And I spend a lot of time with young people. I was at the gun show here in a gun show in Nashua the other day. Spent a couple of days there, and I talked to a lot of young people. Come in there, I'm not going to vote. No, I'm not voting. You know, you guys are. I said, listen, your guns are being taken away because you're not voting.
That's right.
You got to vote. You got to get involved. This is what America's all about. We're a republic. We're not a democracy, as the liberals like to say. We're a republic. We elect our representatives to go to Washington and represent us and to protect our liberties, to enforce the Constitution, to pass constitutional legislation. And if you don't pay attention and you let that's why we're in the mess we're in, because we let these other people win.
Yes.
And we need to change that. And like you just said, I think there's a new breeze blowing, and I think there's a possibility here. And you know, that we could sweep out a whole bunch. And you know what? I don't think it's about politics. I don't think it's about Republicans and Democrats.
No, it's not.
It's about freedom, liberty, versus these central planners, whoever they are. We got some in our party.
Oh, yes.
We got the old central planners, and I talked about some of them, Scott Brown and all the. Think about the Brown. I don't want to be harping on it, but you know, as I said, we have 3 people running who had 100 years experience collectively on the ground in New Hampshire for the U.S. Senate. Yeah. And suddenly the Washington establishment, here again, the central planners, and the hierarchy in the Republican Party here in New Hampshire saying, well, you 3 aren't good enough. New Hampshire we're not putting the right people up. We need to get involved here because you're too dumb to understand what you really need. Yeah. So we'll have Washington, the Washington Republican Party, the National Party, and the state hierarchy of the party. Bring in Mr. Brown from Massachusetts because he knows better. And you know what I'm saying? I don't think so. I'll predict right here, that ain't going to happen. No.
Well, what I want the voters is to understand, too, is that both parties, I feel, are responsible for this mess we're in. And every time they elect their chosen one, you know, the same old happens.
I know. And you know, it's amazing, isn't it? We can't elect somebody who's, quote, unquote, too conservative. Well, how about Ronald Reagan?
Yeah.
You know, he was going to blow up the world. He was crazy. He was just a movie actor, shallow, no brain, you know, no Teflon brain, nothing sticks, all this nonsense. And you know what? A lot of the people who opposed Reagan, not everybody, but a lot of the people who opposed Reagan in those days, in 76 and 80, when he ran here in the primaries, same people who are supporting Scott Brown today. Yeah. Same people. Yeah. And this is the thing. So how many times do we have to lose? I mean, with every time we sacrifice our principles, we lose. Yes. And that's what I said in the Senate in the 90s. You sacrifice your principles, the people will be fed up with you, they'll throw you out of office, and when you come back to your principles, you win. If you can't win on principle, what's a victory worth? Yeah. I mean, so.
Yeah. No, I think we need to, you know, pick outside the box and not the establishment. Because I think every time we pick the establishment, not much changes.
I agree.
And that's what I just want to, you know, in real brief, if you can, what is the critical changes, you know, challenges that are facing America? You know, we have some big ones.
Well, there are a lot. I mean, I think you have some of them that we haven't mentioned. You got the courts in this country are running crazy. I mean, I mean, with the nonsensical opinions that they hand down
Yes.
on releasing. They're releasing criminals because they don't have enough room in the prison. I'm talking about violent criminals. They're putting people back out on the streets again who commit horrible crimes of murder and rape and all kinds of crimes against children. Release them, put them back on the street, give them a second chance, whatever. Not to mention, look at the Supreme Court with a decision on Obamacare. Even though we had a so-called conservative judge who was appointed by President Bush.
Yes.
And he was supposed to be a conservative, and he comes in and rules that Obamacare is constitutional.
Yeah.
He's the fifth vote.
Yeah.
So, I think the court system is awry. And in addition, we talked about many other things, peace through strength.
Yeah.
These are challenges we have to face to keep our military up. You tell me when you have to go. But, and the debt, the national debt is a huge challenge. We've got to deal with it. You've got to tell people the truth. We've got to increase the growth of our economy and cut spending. We've got to reform entitlements. And we've got to get the 10th Amendment back in effect, bring more people, more programs back to the state where they belong.
Yes.
And no unfunded mandates. Don't put mandates on the states without funding them. And on and on. We could go through, Second Amendment.
We could probably spend a couple hours.
Right to life. All of it down
Yeah.
the line.
Yeah. Well, we are getting toward the end, and if you want to just have a minute to close up and just tell the viewers why you should be the candidate, and make sure that they check your website out at bobsmithforusenate.com, and again, your phone number is 606-1581.
Well, John, I'll probably just look into the camera
Yes,
there, and
yeah.
forgive me for that. But I think that clearly we have a major decision to make here in the primary, then in the general election, in terms of which way do we want our country to go. If you're tired of the people, central planners trying to take your freedoms, if you're tired of it, you've got to vote them out, and that's what we have to do. That's what I'm about. You want more freedom, or you want less freedom? That's what this election is about. Do you want somebody to plan your life, tell you who your doctor is, tell you what health insurance you have, spy on you, or harass you because of your political philosophy? That's what's happening with these people. And Senator Shaheen is part of that. It's not personal, but that's part of what she represents. And I'm saying more freedom and less of that. And I would hope, especially young people across the state, get behind me. Let's have a really inspirational race here where we'll inspire people to come on board, get out to vote, and change America. And that's the challenge that we face. I think it's the biggest challenge.
It is, yeah. Well, thank you very much. I really
Thank you,
appreciate
sir.
you coming on.
Great job. I
And
appreciate it.
hopefully we can have you on again when the primary gets a little
Sure.
closer, and we'd love to chat a little more. And again, this is New Hampshire Politics with John Burt, and we had Senator Bob Smith on. He's a great candidate. I want you to check his website out. And again, I'll give that information to you. It's bobsmithforusenate.com. And if you want to just give him a call, and 606-1581. And make sure you check him out. All right, until next time, I'll see you later. Have a good day now. Bye.